What is the role of human geography in a changing world? The interdisciplinary and collaborative nature of human geography is evident as it seeks to address the rapid global changes and the issues they present in the contemporary world. In particular, the concept of food security and sustainability is increasingly important as various environmental and social issues impact the production and the provision of food. This aspect of human geography was highlighted in our interview with human geographer and University of Exeter academic Dr Rebecca Sandover. Her research is primarily focused on these issues of the sustainable provision of food and food security, working alongside local groups and facilitating conversations amongst policymakers regarding this challenge. Hence, her work indirectly affects change and subsequent action in these areas, as well as raising awareness of the issues surrounding food sustainability. Therefore, in light of the interview, during the presentation we will examine 3 primary changes that have an effect on food security through a social, environmental and political lens. Beginning with the COVID-19 pandemic, before focusing on climate change and Brexit, we will highlight some of the ways in which these aspects of the changing world have influenced the sustainable provision of food and the role that human geography plays in investigating and addressing these issues.
One of the most dramatic changes that we've seen in the past few years has been the coronavirus pandemic. When reading Sandover's work on Sustainable Foodscapes, we found that COVID was mentioned quite a lot throughout the paper. Therefore, we did some follow-up academic reading to explore the role of COVID further. We found a blog that Sandover had written, which explained how COVID has highlighted how reliant we are as a nation on supermarkets to supply us food, and that these supply chains are very vulnerable to disruption, and that they also impede local supply chains and sustainable regional produce. We decided that the topic of COVID was a more pressing issue in food production, especially sustainable food production. Therefore, we decided to take this to the interview and ask Sandover herself how COVID had affected the current system, and if it had led to a permanent behaviour change among consumers. She discussed that as a result of COVID, we have seen a shift towards people becoming more interested in supporting local and sustainable food businesses. This was down to the increase in accessibility of local produce compared to imported food due to the shutting of borders. However, an important point which Sandover did raise was the economic impacts of the pandemic. As many people have lost their jobs or stable incomes, we have seen a dramatic increase in food insecurity across the population. Therefore, Sandover highlighted that for these people, supporting local and sustainable businesses was not their top priority. Therefore, these sustainable options are not always appropriate or accessible for everyone, and this is very important to keep in mind when researching these food production networks. Sandover's work as a human geographer on sustainable foodscapes has been important to the changes that society has faced throughout the pandemic, as she has helped to reveal the vulnerabilities in food production networks and studied the food practices of consumers. This has helped to support food producers to meet the needs of their consumers through times of uncertainty. It has also highlighted the inaccessibility of sustainable food to certain groups of society.
Following on from COVID, highlighting the vulnerability of larger supermarkets at times of disruption and the importance of shopping locally. It's clear that food sustainability is a very current topic. Moving away from larger chain suppliers and shops, many consumers have changed their attitudes and habits, shifting to shopping more locally, benefiting local food industries. In terms of climate change, this is a shift that some individuals and communities had already been making. However, Rebecca Sandover mentioned in our interview that COVID has been influential in speeding up the shift and highlighting just how important it is to shop locally. Rebecca's paper reflected on hybrid food networks and how they focus on central food issues, such as sustainable local supply chains, access to sustainable local food, and household food insecurity. Rebecca's paper also reflected on the current food policy vacuum in the UK. This is a worrying state of affairs, especially when considering that agriculture, along with forestry and other land use activities, accounts for 21 to 37% of anthropogenic greenhouse gas emissions. In this situation, however, there is an opportunity for academics, particularly human geographers, to help local self-organising groups to build alternate frameworks which address the issues food production poses for the climate in the absence of government leadership in this area. The collaborative approach, such as Sandover's, encourages focus on the impact of their work, especially related to climate change and its effects on these food networks. During the interview, Rebecca was able to elaborate on this, stating that she sees her role as one of a facilitator, connecting community groups and national organisations, and aiding the formation of hybrid food networks. So it can therefore be suggested that the research that human geographers do is very influential, especially during times where we have to learn to be flexible and adapt to change.
While COVID and climate change have caused dramatic change in food sustainability and security spheres, we thought it would be interesting to research further into what else had an impact on Rebecca's work on sustainable foodscapes. One most notable was Brexit, which, much like COVID and climate change, has altered the way in which we conceptualise sustainable food networks and the impact they can have on communities. A question which has been most prominent in debate is that both Brexit, COVID and climate change have each transformed the food industry in their own way, but what impact are they having on the industry's move towards a more sustainable future? Since the referendum in 2016, Brexit has had severe consequences for the quality, supply and price of food in the UK. The uncertainty experienced by the agricultural and food sectors, where the funding, regulation and trade of them are intrinsically linked to the European Union, has raised awareness for the importance of sustainable food networks and supporting local producers. Although Brexit presents risks for food security, Honor Elridge, Head of Policy at the Sustainable Food Trust, says that Brexit could also offer a unique opportunity for the UK to take a good look at the future of its farming system. She asks the question that while we are faced with growing populations and increasing climate change, how do we actually support a farming system that will thrive into the future and meet those challenges, as opposed to focusing purely on production? While Rebecca's work on sustainable foodscapes hasn't directly linked to Brexit, what she describes as taking a civic-led and bottom-up approach whereby local and regional food and health programmes can bring together networks of organisations to work collaboratively on pressing food issues within their localities can be directly transposed to problems raised by Brexit. Her approach, where human geographers act as facilitators in initiating interaction and discussion between different bodies at different levels, is something that can be used to not only tackle issues raised by COVID and climate change, but also those raised by Brexit. While these three current issues in an ever-changing world have produced their respective issues, in terms of sustainable food networks and an emphasis towards hybrid food networks, in many ways they can be seen as agents of change and initiate action in striving for a more positive and sustainable future.
In conclusion, human geographers have taken on a range of different roles. Rebecca Sandover, for example, has chosen to work alongside the food movement, a movement seeking to create change which Sandover works to support. She is also part of a national research group, within which there are other academics who take a similar approach to participatory research. There are participatory human geographers focusing on a variety of issues who share a similar ethos. This theoretical approach of trying to effect social change is very important to Sandover, who wants to see real-world effects of her research. However, not all academics embrace this. Rebecca elaborated on this in the interview, agreeing that there seems to be more human geographers in areas such as housing, energy, and particularly consumption who take this approach. For example, Ian Cook has done work with civil society organisations to try to address issues of sustainability and labour ethics within the fashion industry. She also acknowledged that this could be a particular area of strength for geographers concerned with consumption, as this encompasses a variety of pertinent issues such as increasing social and economic inequalities, global health systems, and the climate and ecological crisis, in ways which allow researchers to influence outcomes. Consumption, especially that of food, is a daily occurrence which is therefore open to rapid transformation in behaviour patterns. Finally, even during our short time as part of the Human Geography Department of the University of Exeter, we've come to see the world from novel perspectives and to see geography itself in a new light. As such a diverse field of study, it is clear that geography's ability to synthesise interdisciplinary knowledge is a strength which it can bring to a wide range of issues in a rapidly changing world. As illustrated in this presentation, this can include social, political, economic, environmental and global health issues, which are often strongly interlinked, as seen in the recent examples of the COVID-19 pandemic, climate change and Brexit. Therefore, human geography can have a vital role in this context, providing the fresh perspectives needed to successfully navigate these contemporary challenges.